On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing amazing technologies of old that slipped right through our fingers. Welcome to Destination Linux, where we discuss the latest news, hot topics, gaming, mobile, and all things open source in Linux. My name is Ryan.
I'm Jill.
And I'm Michael.
We're also going to be covering new malware to watch out for on your Android devices. And that's not all. We've got even more. Canonical is going distro'less. Plus, Linux gaming, software spotlight, and more. Let's get the show on the road toward Destination Linux. Before we get into community feedback, there was a challenge laid out. And the challenge was, Michael, that you like to get all of the credit for making stuff, and then it never ends up on the show in the time that you say it will. So you promised us a new Jill shirt that was going to drop by this episode, last episode.
When did I promise this?
This is last episode. You got to go back and listen. It's in the episode.
I mean, I was in that episode. Are you sure that this happened?
Jill,
are you just making things up?
It did. I think Michael needs to start using Ratpoison for a while.
Yeah. So there's supposed to be a shirt in the store that people can go buy right now. And if not, Michael, 2 weeks you agreed to.
That is the challenge that I did technically. I remember now. You're right. I did agree to that.
Oh.
All right. So
go to tuxdigital.com/store and check out the new shirt.
No. Let me go see. Is it there?
It is there.
I don't believe
cool.
it. It is there, Jill?
I need to go look too.
Well, you haven't looked.
No.
You don't trust Michael, Jill. Don't ever trust his word for. Oh my gosh, it's there. Oh wow.
That's
I guess
right.
There's no Ratpoison in your future right now, Michael.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yes, I'm.
Shirt looks very cool. I like the different text. I love the floppy disks on it, and everybody.
Oh, that's
needs to think
wonderful, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll pop up a visual of it.
I love those
who are
colors.
watching the video.
So if you're a huge fan of Jill, then you need to go get I'm Unhackable shirt. And then when you go and meet Jill for the first time, you can wear some Jill swag.
Yeah. Aww.
Yeah. And that might get you some extra, ability to talk to Jill. More time. You get an extra minute to talk to Jill if you have one of her shirts.
That's and if you have a floppy with you, you get an extra 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. Good job, Michael. Very, very proud of
beautiful.
you.
Thank you.
It's amazing that Ratpoison was that much of a threat to you that you actually got this done in time.
So I was actually, I cut it close, honestly. I did it today. So,
well, it's still done, so we'll count. You are free from Ratpoison for now until the next dare comes.
Yeah, I can't wait till I challenge you for Ratpoison.
Oh, that would actually be worse for me.
I like, Michael, that you chose a teal floppy disk because my favorites in my collection are teal. In fact, I think I had shown some on the show during a treasure hunt.
There you go.
I wish I remembered that and did it on purpose.
Shut up, Michael. He did, Jill. He told me that he specifically.
I did it
for that reason.
I did that on purpose. I remember the episode that exactly that. I remember the number. I can't tell you right now because
you should go find it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's a challenge for the audience.
There you go. All right. Speaking of our audience,
otherwise they have to use Ratpoison.
Yeah, you all should use Ratpoison now. Michael won his part, so now everyone in the audience has to use Ratpoison. Our audience has posted on our discourse forum, and you should go check out our discourse forum if you haven't, because lots of people, community, talking there about Linuxy stuff, and all the new episodes and things when they drop, you get notified on the discourse forum as well.
Right. So you can subscribe on the forum.
There you go. It's in response to episode number 374, and it's from Vogel Sawyer. I don't know how to say that name, so you know who you are. And they go on to say, while it's true that it's generally harder to catch a virus on Linux by negligently clicking on downloaded files, there are still ways for attackers to target a user's negligence. A common example is curl, and gives an example.com with a mymaliciousfile.sh bash. Piping download shell files into bash is the Linux developer equivalent to clicking on a download.exe on Windows. Don't do this. Download the file first onto your disk and have a look into, compare checksums, and execute it when you're sure that it looks fine. Another common attack surface are unregulated package repositories such as npm or pip. And everyone uses Python, is probably familiar with pip. You get a lot of cool packages using pip. Here, a typo or a wrong name could result in installing a virus. I myself have installed the wrong packages several times because I remembered the package name wrongly or because it wasn't available in P-Y-P-I. Luckily, those wrong packages weren't malicious. Sure, on Linux, you still have the user admin separation by default, which introduces basic security, but this won't stop all malicious code. Ransomware doesn't need admin privileges to encrypt your precious files. So
that is a very good point.
Yeah. Excellent.
So a lot of this, all these are great points. So like we mentioned how the packages won't like have executable permissions automatically, so you don't have to worry about downloading a file. And but that's also true. There are other ways to do it. And the worst thing about the curl version is that it would work, seamlessly without hardly any impact, because a lot of people are actually pushing stuff through this method, as in like the general way to install some applications is using a curl shell script with the bash piping. And then people are getting used to that as a normal way, not knowing that that is also a way to easily get infected by these kinds of like drive-by infections sort of stuff. So that's a very good point. But I think my favorite part about this is the last piece, talking about ransomware, because technically these, pseudo privileges and that sort of stuff, escalating privileges, only applies to the system itself. Your actual data, their home files and all your home folder stuff is not protected by that at all. So if something was installed on your system, or you got like a flat pack or an app image that were basically ransomware trying to encrypt your files, they would have access to that. So that's another great point.
Yeah. Really, everybody needs to take the time these days to become far more educated in these hacks and understanding how they're, how they overtake your system, I should say, and how these different types of methods of whether it's a social hack where people are calling your number, or it's a hack of people trying to get you to download something, or it's a phishing attempt where they're trying to get you to click on a link in an email, those type of things, or give up certain information. Like, it's really important. Just because you're on Linux and it is more secure, I think the ultimate point is you still have to utilize caution when you're dealing with any of these files that you're getting from the internet, or any of these commands that are meant to pull files from the internet. And so, it's interesting because last week I talked about the whole Microsoft thing and how I noticed this pattern where everybody's account was getting hacked. Well, today I was listening to some cybersecurity podcasts, and the guy is talking about a story and says, it's so interesting because my Microsoft account just got hacked in the podcast. So it's like something is really prevalently going on there, for instance, in Outlook. And then I've noticed also, while we're sitting at the dinner table today, before we sat down to do the show here, we started getting a phone call, my son on his phone, and it was scam likely. So the great thing is there's some filtering from a lot of telecoms kind of letting you know if they've encountered this phone number and it's likely a scam thing. Well, my son was like enjoying answering them, and then just like they were like, hey, is so and so there, and they had the name of somebody in the family, which, so their information is getting better, right? Yeah. And they said, we're from the verification company. And he's like, oh, my son is 11, by the way. He goes, oh, that sounds so legit. The verification company, huh? and he was just playing with them, and me and my wife were just trying to like not die laughing. That was awesome. But the interesting thing was they did have names of people in the family, right? So information is getting out. There's massive leaks. One of the biggest leaks ever this week has been hitting the boards in the news with people's information. I think it's over 30 billion records.
30 billion, yeah. I was reading about that one. Bad.
Yeah, so it's just like they're going to get so sophisticated. They're going to be calling you with information that's very specific. Hey, you bank with this company. I'm from this bank. You've purchased recently from Amazon, or they're going to have information that's going to make them sound super legit. So the best thing to do is be very, very cautious, especially if these companies are calling you. And most importantly, if you want to get some information from them, don't give them any information, and then call that company back, looking up their actual phone number that way.
And also, if like most of the time, the best tactic is like to just first of all, what you're saying is true. You should be definitely paying attention to what is being asked of you and that sort of thing. But also, most banks and things like that put in their notifications, like emails and stuff. We will never ask you for your information. We will never call you. We will all these sorts of things. So if they are calling you and asking for anything, like they are absolutely not real. And most of the time, if they are real, they will tell you that they're calling you for this reason, and then will tell you to call them back, or call the main number, like just because they know that this is a thing that is done. And the third option is to just do what Jill does and use floppy disks.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Or get a T-shirt. That
they'll never be able to hack you. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Jill, do you have any advice? Do you get any of these type of calls?
Yes. In fact, I was going to mention about the SMS texts with the postal services. That has been huge. I'm getting hit by a UPS, USPS, and they're all like verification sites. And
you missed your package or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's, what's horrible about all these bad actors is that it's targeting the elderly. And I've noticed I've been getting more now that I'm considered a senior citizen.
I don't think 25 is a senior citizen, Jill, but whatever.
Yeah,
agree.
Thank you.
We'll go with it.
But yeah, it's been like, oh my gosh, my last birthday, I noticed. I'm like, oh, these things are starting to come heavy.
It's an interesting point that you make, though. These things do often target the elderly, and it makes it just that much more horrible, these stories that you hear. And people lose their entire life savings and things over these type of scams all the time, whether it's the IRS claiming you owe money and you have to get a gift card, which to us, when we talk about this stuff a lot and people who listen to shows like this, you're educated. So if somebody asks you to go get a gift card to send to the IRS, you're like, that's ridiculous. But to other people, they don't hear this stuff. They don't know it. So it's a really good idea to talk to your family members, your older parents, grandmas, grandpas, that type of stuff, and mention this stuff. And you can mention it in a casual way of just explaining, hey, there's a scam I heard about, so you're not making them feel dumb or stupid, but you're just kind of explaining that these things are getting so sophisticated nowadays, the level of attack. And that's thanks to all of these companies and their fantastic amount of responsibility they take with our personal data. Because without them, none of these hackers would have all this personal
so much. It's just it's so nice that they care so much.
Yeah.
And speaking of caring so much, as we're doing this show, you might have heard a beep in my recording because I got another email that says spam. You stand in as a beneficiary, and you can. Hi, I'm a private banker with the blah 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 blah, and that's just fun. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Amazing. Yes. Yeah. And as for the NPM and the PIP, that has been a huge attack surface like the last few years. I've been a lot of my developer friends are saying, it's been a real big problem. And
also the namespace is not reliable. That's what's annoying is that sometimes they even have some of these kinds of things have to have a namespace that is just like NPM security.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, and people just assume that that's like an official thing, and it's just some random thing. And there's also some things that are NPM and like PyPy and pip and stuff like that are actually like really good, but then deprecated and archived, and people are still using it even though they're not being touched in like a year or two. So these marketplaces are, you have to be even more vigilant to those.
Yeah. And you also got to be careful with the snaps and the cryptocurrency applications, which we have discussed here on the show.
I mean, that's true with every format for everything,
Exactly. Yeah. Not just snaps, Flatpak.
I think
whatever.
Flatpak had the same kind of thing. And also, like some repos get it. So if it's a user submitted repo, like for example, the AUR even, where those are not universal formats, but that's still possible. Perfect.
Or Deb.
So if it's user submitted, there can be bad actors who are also users and therefore can submit bad stuff.
No way that the dumb bad actor people, as dumb as they are, would be smart enough to install Arch.
I mean, you would think that, except that it's already happened. Darn
it.
So.
We love you sending in your comments, whether you're leaving it on our forums, whether you're talking to us in Discord, or sending us emails. You can do that by going to destinationlinux.net/comments, or you can go to destinationlinux.net/forum and join either one of those and send in your comments, and we may read it on the show. So last week we talked about tech that slipped through our fingers. And when we started talking about it, I was like, no, I want to do a whole main topic on that, because to me, there are moments in my life where I saw tech as a kid, even as an adult, that I couldn't afford and really dreamed and wanted to get a hold of it and thought what it would be like to hold that tech in my hands. And I was a very fortunate kid because my dad had a computer store. So a lot of the computer stuff that people dream about, I had access to. Although the downside of having your dad be in a computer store is your computer was always the potential for parts if we didn't have them in at the store. So you never knew when your computer would suddenly have the case opened and video card gone when you got
a bummer.
Yeah. But, you know, there's a couple of items, and some of this stuff is irrelevant, small things that you think about as a kid, like gaming systems and stuff. And the first one that came to my mind when I thought about this was the Neo Geo.
That's a fantastic one, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Back in 1990, I remember walking through the mall. We had these things called malls back then, and the malls had arcades in them. It was really cool. You go in there, your parents would drop you off, and you just sit there and play arcades. Your parents would literally leave you in an arcade with a bunch of other kids and go shopping for like hours, and it was okay. I know it seems like medieval times at this point, but there was also this thing called...
Was it okay, or just people were just kind of...
I don't know, man. Like, we were fine.
Knows?
I'm here.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same experience. I was in arcades all the time as a kid. I
think we're just all paranoid with the 24-hour news. I don't know. Or maybe just
it could be.
People are crazier. But there was also a store called
a little both.
EB Games. And EB Games had these front-facing windows. And with those windows, they would put their hot items that they were selling. And I remember the first time seeing the Neo Geo there, and I'm like, oh, man, that looks so cool. So I remember going into that store and walking up to the guy and asking him, how much is that game console? I knew nothing about it because we didn't have internet and YouTube and all this stuff. I just saw this advertisement, walked by it, walked in, and he was like $679. And back then, that money was like
huge.
Like celebrities had that kind of money, maybe, but nobody as a kid that I knew had $679, 9-year-old me, certainly not, to spend on a console, a gaming console like that. And
it was so expensive that people just like didn't understand what they thought they were doing. Like if you compared it to any other console, it was at least double and sometimes like triple. Like it was ridiculously priced. But it's funny because I also was like, when I saw Neo Geo on Ryan's list, I was like, oh, I can't do it. So I'm just going to piggyback off this one, because the Neo Geo was a really cool one that I was looking forward to talking about, because it's such for those who don't know, Neo Geo is a console that was actually arcade games as a console. So you could actually take the like not necessarily cartridge, but you could take the data from an arcade machine and play it on a Neo Geo, because it was made to do that. So the quality was so much better than like regular consoles.
System in the 90s. 24 bits.
It was amazing.
In the super early 90s, like it was a very impressive thing. Unfortunately, they priced themselves out of the market, and no one could do that. And also, maybe they had to. Maybe it was such an outlandish idea that they couldn't afford not to have it that price. Who knows? But what we do know is that it did not work.
What's interesting is they did seem to sell well, because I'm looking at the numbers here, and it says Neo Geo CD sold 980,000 units combined worldwide as of March 1997. 1 million Neo Geo MBS units had been shipped as of April 1997. So like that seems like pretty good numbers to me.
Well, that's also different because it's Neo Geo CD, not Neo Geo. Like the AES version was the arcade style.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think they pivoted into the CD version.
Yeah. But either way, it was out of my little grubby hands capabilities to get this thing. And they even tortured you because they had a little television, and these back then TVs were pretty thick. They had a little television in the window, and it was playing the samples of the games, like what's fighting game, was it Fatal Fury or something like that?
Oh yeah,
they would have, and you were looking at these graphics like, this is like a movie to me. Of course, now I look at it, I'm like, so ridiculous looking. It's terrible.
It's
but
like
back then,
the games are on phones are better looking now. Yeah, but
Spazzy mentioned King of the Monsters. I remember that one specifically.
Spazzy.
King of the Monsters was the jam.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Thought, man.
Did you guys ever get a hold of the Neo Geo Pockets? Because I did get one of those later.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
No,
it had one of the best tiny color screens, but I couldn't see it. Because my vision was problematic. So
well, a couple years ago, my wife's heard this story. I cry about it constantly. And a couple years ago, my wife bought me a little mini arcade machine that had a bunch of Neo Geo games loaded on it. And you could play some of those, but they weren't quite as fun as I would have had back in 1990. They kind of lost a lot of there.
I just looked it up, King of the Monsters. I didn't know what it was called, but that I remembered it's like the Godzilla like knockoff thing. It was such a cool looking game. I wanted to play it so much. Dope. You could play it in the arcade, I'm pretty sure, because I'm fairly sure
a lot of the games I think you could play in the arcade, but wasn't the same as having one of this.
Yeah, if you could have one at your house, that's
imagine
awesome.
The bragging rights to your friends if you could have had them over and be like, "Oh, you want to play on my Neo Geo, the 24-bit system instead of your little Nintendo 8-bit, 16-bit thing?"
But you think you think your NES is cool? I'll show you what's cool.
You got Neo Geo.
Yeah, the Neo Geo Pocket was really cool. Also, I was given it to me by my aunt, and I remember my parents saying, "Well, Jill can't see a screen that small." So it was a very expensive gift, and I still have it. But
I was about to ask if you still had it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Of course you do. Of course, Jill does.
Yeah. Now, one of my favorite pieces of tech that I have from a kid was when I first got my first IBM Blue Lightning processor, and I have it in a case back there, a little IBM Blue Lightning. So, there's some things I kept as a kid that were really special to me. That was like when I had the IBM Blue Lightning, all my friends with computers were like, "Oh, I want to come to your house and see this thing. It's 75 megahertz, man."
Yeah. I actually, there's also,
awesome.
So I had the same thing, but there was one thing that I was able to get as a kid, and I still kind of cherish it. So for those who are watching the video version, you sometimes can see it depending on the setting of the views and the camera, but I'll just step away for the side and you'll see my Sega Dreamcast right there.
Oh, yes, there it is. Yeah.
So I got that when I was a kid, and it was awesome.
Aww.
And it also was it was only like around for a year or two, maybe. It was ended very quickly.
That was the end of Sega after the Dreamcast.
Yeah, actually, it was. I mean, and it was so sad. It was so sad because the Dreamcast was actually very cool. And it was the first thing to have, it was the first console to have online play and all that stuff. I mean, it was dial-up, so it wasn't great online play, but you still could do it.
It's interesting you say that because everyone I know that had a Dreamcast absolutely loved it. The problem is that list of people I knew that actually had one was very small. Somehow it just was not marketed well because the people who had one thought it was the greatest thing ever. Yeah. But
I loved it. And it was also... I think it wasn't marketed well, but also they didn't give it enough. Like they marketed it in a way that wasn't ready. So like they were marketing for online play, and it wasn't really available. Like you could technically do it, but it's the same. It's the late 90s, early 2000s. You don't have internet that is capable. There are people who are saying that sometimes the internet is not capable now, and back then it's like not a chance. So they promoted it that way. What they should have done is promoted just the quality of the games were better, the graphics were better, the responsiveness was better. Like there were so many cool things. And also another thing is like the controllers were really weird.
Yeah, they were different. They had like little screens you could add into them and stuff. But Michael, what's some tech that slipped through your fingers that you couldn't get?
Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is a Palm Pilot / BlackBerry. Now this was like I was an adult technically, but I was like 19, so I don't know. Like depending on your opinion of what an adult is, this was a time period where phones were already they're already popular and that sort of stuff. Mobile phones were already popular, and Palm Pilots and Blackberries were actually kind of expensive. And by the time I could afford to buy one, they were obsolete by smartphones and the iPhone and stuff like that. So I never really got a chance to use a Palm Pilot or a Blackberry. But I did get a chance to try the Palm Pre, which was the WebOS phone that still had the physical keyboard. And I really like the physical keyboards. I still like the physical keyboard aspects. So I wish I could have actually used a BlackBerry or a Palm Pilot during the time where they were usable. But, you know, it is what it is.
I remember watching our executives at the company. I was quite young when I started in corporate America. I was 17. I remember them having Palm Pilots and Blackberries and thinking, man, they're smart. They must be really smart. They got all these schedules and things they're figuring out on their
calendar on their phones.
They look so fancy, you know?
Look at those phones got keyboards.
They got keyboards and they're over there doing fancy emails and stuff on their phone. And I was like, man, one day I'm going to be an executive and have that. And, well, that didn't happen. But anyways, the point is that's some really cool tech that I also remember envying as well. But I eventually did get a BlackBerry, not a Palm Pilot. I was kind of gone by the time I had enough to get money.
I did get a BlackBerry, but it was a Storm.
Oh,
that was way later.
Yeah.
So it was technically a BlackBerry. It was like 2008, I think.
Yeah.
So by the time I could get a BlackBerry, I had the money to get a BlackBerry. It was like, why would I, so I got the Storm and I was like, this is terrible. So, and I did not keep it. I tried it for like a week and was like, no, this is bad.
Interesting. Well, I've got a phone one too, but first we got to get to Jill. Jill, what's some tech that slipped through your fingers back in the day?
Well, there's a cool piece of tech that I was actually drooling over that I couldn't afford when I was in college. And Ryan remembers this one.
Yeah.
It is called the Atari Portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
And it was featured in one of my favorite films of all time, Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it back out again.
You know what the cool thing, Jill, about being an adult is we can go buy this stuff that we missed out on.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I've made that my mission, is to collect all the old hardware that I loved as a kid. And it's mostly, of course, computers and computer related. But
you covered this on a treasure hunt as well.
I sure did.
If you want all the details on this, you need to go find that treasure hunt. But this was a special treasure hunt for me because I remember craving this as a kid as well after watching Terminator 2.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that was special about it is an IBM PC compatible Palm Top PC released by the Atari Corporation in June of 1989, and it was the world's first Palm Top computer. So this is what started the revolution.
Yeah.
And in Terminator,
I have no idea what a Palm Top is.
Oh.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never heard that term.
That's Jill's way of going, really, dummy? She goes, oh.
Michael's a hardware Padawan.
That's right.
I mean, I felt the snark from Jill. You didn't have to point it out, Ryan.
You felt the sting.
That's so funny.
No, but it's funny because it's like I understand what it means. It's like Palm laptop. I get it.
Yeah.
But I've never heard that term.
Oh,
so,
okay.
All right.
That's very cool. So in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the young John Connor and his mate jump on John's dirt bike and head to the mall to hack the ATM and get some cash to play at the arcade machines, like we were talking about earlier. Those awesome arcade machines we all like to play.
He punches in a little program and he pulls out the money and goes, easy money, baby.
Yeah, easy money. Come on. And it was used in 2 scenes in the 1991 film. And so I had to have this machine. I mean, it came out earlier in 1989, and I wanted it then. But then when I saw it featured in Terminator 2 in Judgment Day, I had to have it. And like Michael and Ryan were saying, if you would like to hear all about the details and history of this innovative machine, I featured it on my Jill's Treasure Hunt back on Destination Linux episode 296.
It really is a worthy show to go back and listen to because that device is so cool. By the way, Jill, just like, did you ever maybe kind of hack around an ATM with that?
No.
Guilty. Look how she hesitated. Totally guilty. But I get why you deny it, Jill. It makes sense. You don't want to admit to that because
I get why you deny it.
But I did get the Michael AI running on it.
Oh,
As you can see in the treasure hunt, if you
I
remember that.
Yeah. Michael AI is incredible because it can run on nearly anything, like,
Yeah.
and it's
16
Michael's entire
kilobytes.
brain. Yeah. You could check out my GitHub if you want to see Michael AI, the
I'm
github.com.
curious which one is actually the like the predecessor. Which one predates the other? Is Michael AI older than ChatGPT?
Yeah, I was first. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
I was first out there, and then ChatGPT came along and tried to steal my thunder. They stole my code. That's the problem with open source. It can steal your code.
That's 100% what happened. Yeah.
So on my treasure hunt, you could see it running on the Atari portfolio of Michael AI.
Well, the next piece of tech I'm going to cover proves that movies can make an impact on things that you want, because a lot of times they do product placements in movies and stuff.
Yes.
And I was a huge fan.
I was very tempted to have some kind of product. It was like, what do you mean, Ryan?
Right. Like Tide or something you're holding up.
Yeah.
For me, I was a huge fanatic of the Matrix films. Like, to me, the first Matrix revolutionized movies in a way that I had never seen movies before, and just absolutely fell in love with the entire concept. And they had released a phone after the Matrix Reloaded movie dropped, which, as you know, the Matrixes progressively kind of got worse. They didn't get better, unfortunately. But I was still a fan after Reloaded because I was like, no, they're going to do something amazing with the story still. And there was a phone in there specifically, a Samsung model SPH N270, and they would flick the top of this to take calls and things. And it looked so cool in the film. It was so cool when they would take calls and flick it up and stuff. And I remember walking through a Best Buy, and they had the big Matrix display in the front of the Best Buy store. And they had these phones piled up, and they had the Matrix box and everything. And it was like the phone featured in the movie. And I don't remember what it cost, but at the time I knew I couldn't afford it. I was working. It was 2003, but I was really early in my career, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. And I remember picking up that box and looking at it and thinking about being able to own that phone, and never got one. But to me, that was one of the coolest looking phones ever out there. So
I actually never heard about this phone. I mean, I saw the movie, but I never heard about this phone being a real thing you could buy. So I looked it up, and I thought, no, I wouldn't have bought that.
It's so dope looking, man. The way you can just flick the thing up and
it's very stylistic. I'll say that. Yeah.
I would rock this phone stylistic today. Like I would totally. I might just get one.
I mean, so I can't knock that at all, because my next one is also a phone that, I mean, technically it's another phone, but my first one wasn't really a phone. It was a PDA, so it's not the same thing. Whatever. But it's the same kind of thing as yours. I mean, mine is a brick phone, like I talked about in a previous episode, because of Zach Morris on Saved by the Bell.
No way. You admit to watching Saved by the Bell?
Dude, I watched almost every episode, probably.
So
I have no idea. I watched almost all of them.
I watched it too. It's so embarrassing, Michael, but I watched it.
No, it was so good. Like, time out. Okay.
No,
so
it wasn't good. It was never good. Let's be honest. It was.
Yes, it was. It was good for people, for children who don't have good taste.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because that's like all children. Yeah. You're not going to have like that. That's why that the Baby Shark thing is so popular, because kids just like terrible stuff.
That's right.
It was a great after school program,
Yeah.
For little kids, yes. And also,
of course, Michael started watching this at 23, but
no. I was like 6 or 7. But here's the best part: is that it actually was one of the first shows that made me think, like, towards the later end of the show, it made me think, like, how are these people in high school? Like, they look like they're 25 or 30 or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, that show introduced me to the brick phone, and I really want a brick phone. Like, I want one now.
The old school big giant one he had, right?
Yeah, the big gray one that's like literally the size of a brick, and it has a giant antenna.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have one of those.
What?
Yay!
So I didn't technically. It didn't work. I went and I got one as like a used thing in like a garage sale, and I was like, I have to have this. It didn't work at all. I just wanted to have one, and I don't know where it is now, but I wish I still had it. But I wish they actually would make them work. Like, if we could have, but I was thinking like that modular thing. So what if you could have like a front face that's a smartphone, like a modern version of the brick phone, and you could change the pieces, have like a replaceable battery and all these sorts of stuff.
Whoa,
I would 100% buy this.
Yeah. You'd walk around with a giant brick phone.
100%.
Hello, Mom. How are you today? Walking through a restaurant.
I mean, not that big of a phone. I'm talking about like season 2 or 3 of the show.
Yeah. Spazzy said that would be one big battery for that phone, and he's right. You could probably get 3-4 days, maybe even a week of battery life with the amount of space you have with that phone. So I like your idea, though. Let's stop going thinner. Let's just make them super thick again, replaceable batteries, and
or do the Matrix thing and make them super like stylized and elaborate designs. Actually, what's funny is that I was surprised that Samsung did it and not LG, because LG is the ones who are like always doing crazy different types of phones.
Yeah. Well, Samsung had that good product placement in there. All right, Jill, what's your second item?
Okay. So this is a big one, literally. And, I've been collecting computers since the 1970s, and I wanted one of the big irons. The Cray one was a supercomputer designed, manufactured, and marketed by Cray Research that was huge, had a beautifully modern design, and that you could walk in the center of and even sit on.
That takes a lot of space.
Yeah.
Wow. Jill, that's just cray.
Yeah, that's just
Jill, don't laugh at his jokes, please.
That was good, Michael. Good dad joke. Okay. It was announced in 1975. The first Cray 1 system was actually installed at Los Alamos National Laboratory in 1976. Eventually, 8 Cray 1s were sold, making it one of the most successful supercomputers in history. And one of my favorite movies of all time was The Last Starfighter, which actually came out in 1984. The Last Starfighter was rendered on a Cray X-MP supercomputer, which came out in 1982 at the whopping cost of $15 million.
Well, that's it. I don't know why you don't have one, Jill.
That Neo Geo sounds really cheap now.
It sounds really cheap in comparison, yes. Yeah. And I wanted that machine so bad because The Last Starfighter is one of the movies that inspired me to go into a career of animation. This was huge to me. But of course, that was out of my budget. You
don't say. I really thought,
oh my gosh.
Maybe we could pull together as a community, Michael, and build a $15 million computer, Everyone donates $1.
Yeah.
Everyone donates $1 and tells everyone they know to donate $1, and then tells everyone they know, and then tells everyone they know.
Yeah.
Maybe we could
15 million times later.
15 million times later, yeah.
And every man, woman, and child on the planet.
Yeah. So for me, the desire actually was especially made stronger when I had the opportunity to walk inside the original and magical Cray X-MP supercomputer that rendered the movie The Last Starfighter. I had goosebumps and I was shaking. I was so excited.
Oh my gosh. I love how much you love hardware. That is so awesome.
So I did a research paper on the Cray X-MP and its rendering of The Last Starfighter for my animation class in college, and had this exciting opportunity because of one of my awesome professors.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And, honestly, I would be happy with any Cray for my collection, but those two are the ones I want most for my computer hardware museum.
And
wouldn't that require like an entire room in your house in order to have it?
That's the thing. I would have to literally build another room on the house for that.
Yeah, because it's only 5.5 tons, Michael.
Yes.
The Cray.
And moving it is another thing altogether.
No big deal.
Moving it will cost you just as much as the price of the computer.
I was going to say 5.5 tons. You're talking hundreds of $1,000s in shipping costs there.
Yeah,
probably.
It reminds me of this this meme I saw. I don't remember when it was, but it was showing like the scene of someone installing in the 60s or 70s a supercomputer, and it was this massive thing where like 10 people are pulling it in, and then someone else now went to that same location and held up a Raspberry Pi just right in that same spot.
Oh, yeah, it's more powerful.
More powerful than the supercomputer, like minuscule in comparison. Like it's a fun way to look at it in the terms of like how far we've come. but
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
like the idea of like, recreating that stuff was fun too. So I think that I would love to have a supercomputer, at least not even just have one, just to kind of walk around one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the last one on eBay sold for millions of dollars. So I probably won't get one in this lifetime.
Well, here's some interesting news. So that computer was a supercomputer back then, but by
Yeah.
comparison, just a Google Nexus 10 or an HTC One, which are older
yeah.
form of phones, run at about 1 G-flops. And this Cray 2 was capable of 1.9 G-flops.
Yeah.
And an iPhone 11 runs at 154.9 G-flops. So it was a supercomputer back then, but it's slow.
It's slow.
Today,
Yes.
right? Like it's not even equivalent to a phone. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Isn't that
It's
amazing?
equivalent to a phone from 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
So Ryan, what is your last thing that you wanted to talk about?
All right. So the last thing I want to talk about actually is more of an adult decision I had to make not to get these things because I really wanted them when they were marketed out there. And I know I'd rock them and make them look cool, is the Google Glasses. I know privacy, all that stuff was a big part of me, but the hardware addict would have overcome the privacy part of me for the Google Glasses because it was really the first time that you kind of saw something functional in an augmented reality setup. When I say functional,
kind of the only last one too.
Yeah, like it didn't have these gigantic glasses and goggles. It was, form fitted frames, and they even had partnerships with Ray-Ban and other companies to make, even cooler looking frames. Oakley, for instance, made frames for them. And so this frame design was really cool. But when they announced these back in 2013, they released them for a limited period of time at $1,500. And there was just, 2013. Pretty sure my son was about to be born during this time. There was just no money that was going to be going into Google Glasses at that point in my life. So it was really cool idea, concept, but
still is actually
awesome. It's amazing.
It still looks like a futuristic product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks ridiculous, but it also looks like a futuristic product. And I remember when this came out, I was so excited for it. And then I found out that it doesn't work with people who wear glasses. You get frames that were glasses, but you actually didn't have lenses in them. So I don't know. Eventually, they maybe did that, but at the beginning,
eventually they did create a prescription lens program for people.
By that time, I was kind of like it was like a year or two later. By that time, I was kind of like, I saw all the negative reviews and people talking about how the Google Glass, depending on the climate, if you change like drastic climates, they would break and you'd have to send it off to get replaced. And like, oh, okay. So if you go from a place that's hot to a place that's cold, your Google Glass that you spent $1,500 on is now destroyed. That's not great.
Still, this was at Google when Google was like at the peak of their engineering, and there was no stopping what they could do.
I also think this was before they got rid of the don't be evil.
Don't be evil thing. Yeah. So this was back when Google was kind of a beloved company still. And, the first prototype of this, to give you an example, was 8 pounds. They weighed 8 pounds when the engineers were making the prototype for the Google Glasses. And then by 2013...
I feel sorry for the engineers who had to put that on their heads.
By 2013, which was just 2 years later from their 8-pound prototype, they had these super thin glasses that look like, the size of regular glasses you would wear on your face. And so the amount of talent still at Google, but the amount of talent was allowed to be talent and work on things that were this cool and produce things this cool. And you just don't see stuff from Google like that anymore. I mean, they just kill off the products people love, and their engineering's terrible and the reputation's terrible. And it stinks because Google has some of the most talented people in the world working for them. And if you just let them alone and work on stuff, you would get cool crap like this. But, the suits had to ruin it. The suits came in and ruined it. And
it's also kind of funny considering how many of the cool services that Google has now that started because of that. Like Gmail was started because people were just messing with stuff and making cool stuff. Or like Google Wave, which was really awesome and they killed. So there's a lot of stuff that they did. But it is kind of funny that the Google Glass, it still has potential if they were just to make a new version that was like...
I think Meta's going to do it now.
Exactly. you know.
But Google
and also, if they were
totally
able to make it built into a pair of glasses that looked like glasses, and it didn't look like a, you know, it looks kind of weird still.
It does, yeah.
And if it was just a pair of glasses that they somehow projected it onto the lens itself, that would be amazing, and it would be like drastically.
Listen, it doesn't matter what they look like. You just get Taylor Swift to wear them at a concert. Everybody will think they're cool, and everyone will be wearing them. You know?
I mean, there will be some people. There will be some people who buy it because of that, but I don't think that people are going to think they're cool. It's just going to be like, oh, because Taylor Swift.
I don't know. Our audience is huge Taylor Swift fans. I hear.
I mean, okay, fair point. I guess.
I hear 90% of our audience are huge Taylor Swift fans. They're Swifties, you know.
They're Swifties. Yeah.
Speaking of Swifties, Spazzy in our chat wanted to add to Jill your mention of the supercomputer, saying his dad used a Cray when he was at university, and saying if your print job took longer than a millisecond to render, they killed it for being bad code, right?
Yeah, so, cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Chris.
Yeah. He likes to be called by Swifty, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
That's Swifty.
All right, Michael, what's your last item you have?
So it's kind of funny because it also is relevant to being an adult and putting something on your head. So kind of like you, accidentally being associated to yours twice somehow.
You want a hat?
No, I've worn hats and I've gotten feedback from people like, you should not wear hats. Like we actually had comments on one of our shows, like the last time I wore a hat. They're like, you shouldn't wear a hat.
You don't have a head for a hat.
And it's funny. The funny thing is like, I agree. I don't think I look good in hats. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's talk about what I actually meant. And that is a VR headset. I still have not tried a VR headset of any kind.
You still haven't tried one?
No, not one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to, but also I don't want to enough to go get one. It's a weird thing where they are still too expensive for me to justify it, even though I could afford it. I can now. I'm not a kid anymore, right? But still, it's so expensive just to get, like. I mean, I think
the Meta Quest is the most approachable as far as cost goes, right? It's about the same price as a console or something like that. At the same time, I've had a lot of experience with VR headsets of various kinds, and your first impression of them is always like amazing. Like it blows you away. Mm-hmm. And then you start getting that kind of either sick feeling or you just get tired of wearing this heavy thing over your face the whole time. So it quickly wears off. And I say that as an adult, an old boring adult, but my kids absolutely, and I think Wendy mentioned her kids too, love the VR world, and they play this game called Gorilla Tag. It sounds the graphics, first of all, are ridiculous. Like Zeb would have hated Gorilla Tag. Okay, like it's pixelated gorillas that we
need to have Zeb come on and have him play that game.
But
somehow the social aspect of it and then playing tag with each other is so much fun that they play it more than they play their PlayStation or anything else now. So I think part of it is growing up with that kind of technology, but it always wows me. Some of the stuff they have absolutely blows me away. But yeah, I kind of get why you're not dropping the money for it, because it's one of those things where I think as an adult, you'd have it, you'd play with it for a little bit, and then it'd be $600 sitting there doing nothing but collecting dust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something I've always wondered about it, because I do have not great vision. So like the only thing I do have is like very close up vision. So a VR might be allowing me to use it without using my glasses. So that there is that potential, but at the same time, just to find out is not worth getting it, So I wish I could get like something that's more useful than just playing a few games here and there. I've seen people use it like to have this virtual desktop and that sort of stuff, but then they get their neck gets tired after a little while and it's just not practical. So I wish there was like a more, functional justification for it than just occasional playing games or that sort of thing. And if there was that, I would definitely get it. But I would like to try one at some point just to see what it's like overall. But we'll someday.
They've opened like arcade places around.
Yeah,
where I
there
live.
was actually one that was here, and I went to go to it, and I heard about it, and then I never got a chance. And then 3 months later, it was gone.
Yeah, they don't. I was going to say they don't seem to last very long. I like the concept. I've gone to a couple of them, but I think it's hard for them to make a lot of money because, first of all, they charge a lot, to use the stuff, and I don't know.
You know, Michael, before the pandemic and before you guys came to the Southern California Linux Expo, there was always one of the VR headsets on display. So I've played with all of them. And now my brother, he owns like 4 different ones.
Oh my goodness.
And in fact, that was going to be kind of, I was thinking, the irony of this is I was thinking of this for my third item was a VR headset that would work with my vision. Because I want that immersion. I want it. But because I only see out of one eye, it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
But there was one company, and sadly, I haven't heard from that company in a long time, but quite a few years ago, when it was becoming very popular, there was a company that was making a VR headset that was not 2 lenses, but just a band that went around your eyes. And they said it was really good for people that had visual impairment. And it just never, I haven't heard anything about it since.
What was the name of the company?
That's what I'm trying to remember. It didn't last very long.
Vendetta? By chance?
No.
No. Okay.
I know it was.
Did you see the thumbnail for last episode?
Oh, you did so good with the thumbnail, Michael. It was so good.
For those who don't know, we named that episode AI-powered chocolate chip and vendetta for smartphones.
Yeah.
And I actually used an AI generator to create a V for Vendetta cookie, chocolate chip cookie, just to put on the thumbnail. And I was so proud of how stupid that was.
I thought it was great, Michael.
Yeah, it was amazing.
But this company, they featured it, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. It was featured at TwitchCon and several other gaming conventions I had gone to.
Well, maybe our community can find it and send it in, and we can find out what happened to that company. But that makes a lot of sense, Jill. Like, being able to experience that. How did the band help you experience the immersion? Was it a bandwidth that was just closer to your eyes, or you didn't need to have 2 individual lenses?
Yeah, there was something about not needing. I didn't get to try it because the line for it was like 5-6 hours. So I didn't stand in the line. And I had heard from a few people who tried it and said their vision was too bad for it. But some other people said it worked pretty good. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's a future there where somebody can create an attachment to, because I know in the MetaQuest stuff, it's 2 different lenses, but I could see you could put maybe an attachment to combine them into one, and maybe that would allow for
that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you're not getting the full 3D effect, just to have, you can actually, buy the computer screens that are just one lens that go around and those exist. And so you putting that into 3D.
Yeah,
Speaking of things that, so this week is about tech that we didn't get a chance to. Maybe next week or a future episode of some kind, we have talked about tech that we want to exist but doesn't.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Because I just thought of one as we were talking about it, and I won't remember it later. So Jordy's visor, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, Jordy's visor. There we go.
It reminds me of Jordy's visor.
You could have just wrote it in the show notes, and then next week.
I already have like 3 or 4 other ones.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, we've got to move on from this. This was a lot of fun. It was neat thinking back, and we'd love to hear from you on some of the things that slipped through your fingers, tech that you wanted as a kid that you couldn't afford or wanted to try out. In Jill's case, she picked a $15 million supercomputer. So I feel like,
so
it's a little
basically higher. 4 people on the planet can afford it.
Right. Oh, man.
So let's move on to our news topic. So that is Canonical is looking to make itself the premier partner for enterprise solutions with its latest move of going distro'less. You might be wondering, how does that work? Because Canonical makes Ubuntu. Well, they're still going to be making Ubuntu, but they're also making distro'less Docker images so people can be able to essentially deploy applications and services on whatever they want, or like basically like as minimum as possible. So you have just a container that all you need. I forgot what it's called, but it's like Just Enough OS or something like that. And that's what they're doing for these. They're essentially offering Docker images that are Ubuntu free or with Ubuntu if you want, but with 12 years of security support.
Huge.
Yeah.
And like that's crazy. And they're like custom. So you can have them build, they can build them for you and they deploy it and support it. And it comes with like the Ubuntu Pro subscription and that sort of stuff. and they'll be compatible with other distros. They even specify multiples like RHEL that they're going to have support. So this is a very interesting move by Canonical.
You know, there's so many devices out there that they're kind of being made by these, I don't want to say no-name companies, but not well-known companies, small electronic manufacturing companies and things like such as cameras for your car. You know, different cameras
like
for your
dash cams and stuff.
Dash cams, cameras for outside your home.
Never heard of any of those dash cam companies ever.
Yeah,
you know, I'm
and
like,
so,
what's the best dash cam company? And there's like some random gibberish thing.
Zygo Bob. Yeah. You're like, I had never heard of that, but it's rated 5 stars, probably all bot. But anyways, there's a guy in a suit from Amazon that does commercials now saying they're fixing their rating system and comments. So he's in a suit. I tend to trust him.
We believe you because you have a suit on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in any case, my point is that there's a lot of these little devices. And I think the biggest problem is with these devices is that they're probably put with a specific OS or on them that doesn't get any updates ever after its initial release, right? And the fact is that they probably couldn't afford, because these devices are generally lower cost. It could be tablets, it could be anything, any type of IoT device, to go and provide that kind of maintenance. And you're kind of like getting a $60 tablet when most of them are $300. So maybe you just kind of accept that, hey, you're probably not going to get any updates on this. But with Canonical kind of saying, hey, we're going to do 12 years of security updates when you use this distro'less, that allows these companies now to actually release and support, right, at least from the security standpoint, these devices for much, much longer. This is a good play from Shuttleworth.
Yeah, especially the whole support part, because they're basically making, like, a lot of these IoT devices are just thrown out there and never updated. And this makes it actually possible regardless of what distro they're doing. So it's a very cool idea. So, you know, mad props to Canonical.
Mad prop.
Yeah.
Jill, what did Shuttleworth have to say about this?
Oh boy. So this was just so exciting. It was, there are so many good quotes to use, and this is one of our favorites. He says, Canonical will deliver distro'less or Ubuntu-based Docker images to your spec, which we will support on RHEL, VMware, Ubuntu, or major public cloud K8s. Our enterprise and ISV customers can now count on Canonical to meet regulatory maintenance requirements with any open source stack, no matter how large or complex, wherever they want to deploy it.
Wow. Nice. And for those who don't know what K8s means, that's Kubernetes.
Yeah, Kubernetes.
Why is Kubernetes K8s as the initialism or the acronym or whatever? Who knows?
If you do know, send us an email and let us know why it's K8s. I want to know. K8s. Canonical also partnered with Microsoft to create chiseled containers, which are a mere 100 megabytes for the .NET community. So a self-contained .NET application runtime base image is only 6 megabytes when compressed. So this is pretty cool too. They've got some partnerships with Microsoft in creating these little things. And I just find it really interesting that Ubuntu, rather than just getting their customers on a Ubuntu-based microsystem and say, hey, we're offering just our customers this 12 years of support if you're using Ubuntu specifically, that would be a move I would expect. But they're kind of making this distro'less. Doesn't mean they're supporting RHEL or anything else, but they're creating this distro'less.
Yeah. They're supporting the particular images on whatever. So like you would, if you're using RHEL, you still need a RHEL support thing.
Right,
from
exactly.
Red Hat. Yeah.
But I think it's really cool, man. IoT devices and companies, I think, will really benefit from this. And I think this will be a big splash for Canonical for sure.
Yeah. It's also an interesting play if they're trying to get people to use Canonical stuff and then kind of slowly push them away from the RHEL side. Who knows?
Good. Canonical.
Good point. And I think, this is actually a brilliant move by Canonical. And they are really thinking outside of the box. They are actually calling this their Everything LTS initiative, where Ubuntu Pro customers get up to 12 years of long-term support for any open source Docker image. And honestly, as I was reading this announcement, I couldn't help but think about all the years the Linux community and companies have been making small Linux distros on CDs and later USBs for specific needs. And this is the next evolution of that. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good
I
point.
think that's a good point. And also, I like the name Everything LTS. It's a good name.
Yeah.
Although it says open source software, open source Docker images. So is it not everything? You know, just saying.
Everything bagel, is it?
Yeah, and Everything Bagel is like, okay, now I want to know, do you put like, all the seasonings on top of your Docker images? And like, yeah. That's how I would like to interpret it from now on.
It reminds me, though, Jill, when you're talking about CDs and later USBs, that there was an article out there that got kind of blasted on Reddit. It was like Sony's killing off the Blu-ray technology, their CD and manufacturing and stuff.
Yeah.
And the article was titled something like Sony killing off pirating by getting rid of the Blu-ray CD. And then the people on Reddit were laughing like, wait, you mean you haven't heard of a USB drive and the ability to remove the movies onto that? Like,
yeah.
Really? I don't think it's going to have much effect on pirating there.
Yeah, it will have zero effect. Like the way when you said that, I was like, what? I just started laughing because of how absurd that is. You know that there's this thing called screen recording and there's this thing called streaming video. You put those together and oh my goodness,
that's impossible.
Nonsense. Like it's funny. It's funny when you see like these tech articles written by people who are not tech at all.
Yeah.
They say things that are like, or AI. Yes. It could be just AI. Because like, no, anybody who has any level of understanding of tech would not have put an article like that. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what their thought was in there is that, people go and buy Blu-rays for the movies that come out and then they rip them. But that's not the only way to get ripped movies, is kind of where they faltered.
I guess the only thing that they're doing now is making the quality of the rips bad because streaming quality is already bad.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think many people care as long as it's free, right?
Well,
Jill, you don't have any experience ripping pirating software, right? All right, moving on to Android.
No, Jill, I've never done it illegally.
No, of course not, Jill. That's right. That's exactly what we say.
Yeah.
I've never done it. Michael's we've never
done it. No, I've never done it. Allegedly, I don't even know what it is.
Good job, Jill.
Yeah.
All right. So our next section is mobile news, and we're going to talk about a new sneaky Android malware. And so there's another malware discovered that's been snuck into a bunch of popular apps in the Android App Store. It's called Examalicious. Examalicious.
Zamalicious?
It's not very delicious at all, Michael. It's not delicious.
It's not delicious.
Examalicious.
Zamalicious.
Zamalicious. Yeah. Zamalicious.
It's already infected 327,000 devices and works by getting the user to install one of their popular apps like Logo Maker Pro, Horoscope app, Count Easy Calorie Calculator. How dare you go after people trying to count their calories? What jerks.
Yeah, they're trying to take care of their body, and you're doing that to people.
Yeah.
How dare you? Actually, the Step Keeper one is the same thing.
Step Keeper on there. There's 13 apps in total, and they range from all kinds of different little tasks and things that the apps do. And here's how it works. Android, of course, has a terribly orchestrated privilege system in Android that we all know, and they have a terribly orchestrated Android store. So when you combine those two things together, what it allows them to do is have a company like this come in and abuse both those things. So because for some reason an app has the ability to request carte blanche access from the user to have access to everything from the file system on an Android device, if the user gets the little pop-up and clicks OK, allow access, now this
which people just completely ignore and click.
If you're trying to get into the game or whatever, you may accidentally click it. Could be slightly hidden under some stuff. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's very easy. Obviously, 327,000 people, what they know has been infected with it already. And basically you're granting it privileged access, which shouldn't even be an option in my mind to, give all that access. And once you give it that access from that first pop-up, just one, then the first stage dropper contains functions to do things like self-update itself, from the main Android APK file, meaning it can be weaponized to act as spyware, a banking Trojan without any user interaction from that point on. So once you've installed it and you've done that one accept, they've got everything at that point. They can do whatever they want without you needing to further give them any permissions and things. So we're going to do a tip and trick section right here to help you out with this if you're utilizing an Android device. Apple still could happen on, but Apple obviously has a much more curated store and a better permission system. It always has had a better permission system than Android does. Don't download random apps from Google Play Store or anywhere else, assuming your device is properly sandboxed, because Android allows them to go around that.
That's true.
Yeah.
And also always read the permission pop-ups of any app. Don't get too excited and click. Just be a little patient.
Read.
Don't be too excited and start clicking and try to get it. I actually bought some products, saw what the permissions on the app was, sent it back because I'm not giving RGB lights IP access. No, it was GPS location data. What? Why do you need it for a light? I just want to change the color. No, never. This is ridiculous. Also, Android or Google specifically, why is that even a possibility? If they're not making software for the actual need of GPS, why do they get the option to even request it? That is the amount of things that have that in their permissions options that do not need it is just insane.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Play Store changed a few years back, a year or so maybe, to say that the developers get to fill out the section that says what permissions the app and data, what they're doing with your, like they self-report it.
They self-report.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that's still the case. I know that was definitely the case for a while, but that's how stupid.
Hey, Google, are you aware that you made Google? Maybe you could figure out how to have a system where they check a box and request a thing, and then you tell them people that based on those checks that you don't have to use.
This is the same company that made Google Glasses back in the day has now become this. Like what's happened. What's happened to Google?
That "don't be evil" thing is very much missing here.
And kids are especially susceptible to downloading random games and apps. I had to put the whole family manager on because my kids, first of all, it comes a lot from their friends. Their friends will have carte blanche Play Store access and download all this stuff and go to my kids and be like, hey, download this game so we can play together. And I'm looking at the game and it's like, people have caught on that it's scammy and that it's taking all this data and information and rated it these terrible things. But kids don't read that stuff. They don't think about it. So I have the family manager apps in that allow me, I have to prove every app before it gets installed in those things. But if they get through one phone that sits on your Wi-Fi, they can get to other devices too. So you want to make sure all the devices in your network are kind of locked down there.
And also regularly audit the apps that you have. Now, you might not think about this as like a big deal, but sometimes these apps have updates and then they get taken over by another company. Like sometimes we've even seen not only applications being purchased by a company that then changes and adds adware or spyware or something. And then we even saw an ad blocker was bought by someone who then started making ads in the ad blocker. Like all these sorts of things can happen. So just make sure to, even though it could be good at one point, doesn't mean it's not going to be changed in the future. So, every once in a while, go back and look at stuff.
There you go.
Really good point. I was thinking about, to tell our users to use F-Droid, the free and open source Android app repository, to download alternative open source apps as much as possible, or download it from F-Droid instead of the Play Store if it's offered on both. That's something that I do.
Yeah.
No, there's also you going to pay attention to like F-Droid still can do that.
Yeah, it still can. You're just a little more safer. I haven't had any issues yet on F-Droid.
Is it safer though? Because do they have a system where because I think it's just like as soon as the hackers find out, they could just make. I know we want to
believe F-Droid is safer, and I know there are people who are looking through certain apps to curate.
Yeah, there are.
I'm pretty sure there's been a bunch of articles about F-Droid having some malicious software in it. I'll have to do some research to see if it's there. Yeah. Either way, I think F-Droid probably, honestly, is more curated than Google's Play Store.
Yeah,
based on. That it's probably curated at all, but I would still be very, very careful with it to that point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
any app repository, you gotta.
Be careful. I think
you
that's
gotta be
really the
careful.
theme of this show, isn't it? We
Yeah.
talked about app repositories. They can be,
Yeah.
be dangerous,
Yes.
people.
Any app repository, just unless it's technically possible because of like backdoors that are put in like XZ and that sort of stuff. So even the actual like the official repository of the distro you're using can still have something like that because they didn't really have anything to do with it, but it's still possible if there's like a lot of effort being put into it. So the official repositories you can pretty much trust, but also you can't necessarily guarantee that those are being curated either, because there's tens of thousands of packages in these repos. There's no way that they're going to be able to audit all of them, right? So, just pay attention to what you're using and that sort of stuff. And I know that a lot of people are thinking like, this is like, of course we know this. You don't have to say this. But people who are brand new to Linux are watching this show, and they might not know this because of the fact that using Windows, they've never really been taught to, pay attention to those things. Because if that was the case,
Windows.
if they were actually taught that sort of stuff, then Windows wouldn't have that massive problem that they have. Well, I guess they still would because it's just click OK and, anyway.
So our app this week is called Echo. This is a simple utility to ping websites and easily set up advanced ping commands through the ease of a GUI interface. A GUI interface. A GUI interface.
Oh my gosh. You two are unbelievable.
I had to.
Because it's called Echo.
With this utility, you can easily set things like number of pings, intervals between each packet, and set the timeout. While you can also do this through the terminal if you find yourself with the need to ping but don't want the sting of learning the terminal switches, check out Echo.
Man, they need to put that in the description for the software there. That's so good.
That was brilliant. Ryan wrote that part.
I was a little happy at that moment.
Yeah,
right?
No,
yeah.
That was
happy.
great.
I think what he's trying to say is he was drunk at the time.
Yeah, he was drunk. And the program can be had over at flathub.org as a handy flat pack. But this is a really awesome utility. I use Echo on the terminal all the time to check my health, of the connections and everything. So it's nice to have a GUI because there's not many GUIs for that. So
yeah, I think this is good for people just starting to learn about the ping commands and how they work and the different switches and things. I highly recommend you make sure you learn the terminal piece of this because this is really important networking. Commands to know.
Okay, so if you are interested in the technology aspects or you're trying to go into like a professional, you do need to know what ping does and how to use it and that sort of stuff because there's so many different configurations of ping. Right. Just going to ping and putting the URL or putting the IP, that's the basics. There's a lot of stuff. However, if you are new to Linux and you're an average user who just wants to use a system, you do not have to care whatsoever.
Michael, you should care. You should take the time to learn every switch and every command in the Linux terminal that's available to you.
Oh,
I would like to. Okay, so I somewhat agree. Unless you're most people, you don't have to care.
You don't have time. Exactly.
Oh,
that's the beauty about Linux these days. Like you don't have to actually care, and that's great. That's great.
Is true. Yeah. Another use case for this is if you change DNSs a lot, like I do. This is a great utility to see, what the reachability of your connections are. So
very nice.
Yeah.
You're trying to hide all that hacking, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. And you can come join us on Discord by going to tuxdigital.com/Discord. And if you want to become a patron, you can watch the show live with us every Wednesday, and it's way more fun live. I think it's fun no matter what, but it's way more fun live.
It's way more fun live. There's so much stuff that happens. Go to tuxdigital.com/membership to become a patron and to see what all that stuff is that happens. And you get to join us in the patron-only post show that happens every week after the show where we hang out with our patrons. tuxdigital.com/membership. And if you would like to, you can also help the show out by going to the tuxdigital.com/store. And if you didn't hear before, there is a new shirt available, the I'm Unhackable shirt, to honor Jill and her unhackableness of floppy disks.
Yes. Love
so
it.
you can get t-shirts. We also have hoodies, mugs, hats, and so much more at tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all the amazing shows here on Tux Digital. That's right, we have an entire network of shows to fill your whole week with geeky goodness. Check out This Week in Linux for your source for Linux Weekly GNews, which is a weekly video podcast that Michael hosts that takes you through all the happenings of Linux and open source each and every week. And he does an awesome job of it. I love that show.
The host of that show is amazing.
Yes.
That's okay.
He is such a great host.
You are, Michael. You're awesome.
And humble. Very humble person.
Everyone head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all our great shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source.
No, the fact that you paused right there.
I know.
All their it can't be great. No, I must be reading that wrong. It's not great shows. No. If you want to subscribe to all their subpar shows, go to Tux Digital.
All their mediocre shows.
Yeah.
And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching in the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce.
Everybody, have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Hey, Michael, I was wondering, do you think Jill pirates our show?
I think so. Yeah. That explains so much of the download numbers.
She hacks our show and then redistributes it on like one of those hacker forums.
Exactly. Like, guess what I got this time? They think that everybody can get for free because it's available all the time on YouTube.
Guys, I got DL379 uploading to you now. It's coming your way.
Blu-ray quality as well.
Blu-ray quality. Direct from the source. She just records it while we're recording it.
Exactly.
Well, the truth is that there's thousands of floppy disks, and I can get about a second of video on each floppy disk. And then I split it up, and then you can recombine it later.
Oh,
there's a secret message.
Oh, okay. Now I need to know the secret message. It's like the other part was like way too much effort.
Imagine putting this whole show on floppy disks.
Yes.
Awesome.
Amazing.
That was kind of like, if you remember, what was the game? It was Wing Commander that had like 25 floppy disks to install it or something along those lines.
Slackware Linux as well.
Yeah, you would just have to sit there and keep putting in disk after disk after disk after disk. And
yeah, that was the thing. And in fact,
the 90s.
I used to, when I, back before zip drives, SideQuest drives, and enough hard drive space, when you didn't have enough, I used to actually put, 1 and 2 minute animations on floppy disks. And it was horrible because you'd have like 100 for each set. And if one was bad, and then as a result, because reading and writing image files on floppies were very hard on them. So I'd always have at least 3 backups of each disk. Because if you lost one, you were hundreds. Screwed. I literally had hundreds and was carrying hundreds. You had to have those
little lock boxes and stuff. But
you know what? You saw them.
You aren't allowed to hear the rest of this. Only our patrons are. This is patron after show. So exactly. You who aren't paying, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week. And
bye-bye.
Also, bye-bye.
Yeah. That was good, Ryan.